Yes, I know this looks like another featherweight movie review, but it's not a movie review. It's a culture review. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your right angle on the depths to which our society seems to have fallen. And the problem with being in free fall is, especially when you've fallen through wide open air, you got nothing to measure it by. But just a couple nights ago, I went to see this movie, Christopher Robin, which is about the story of Winnie the Pooh with a boy grown up. And it was like the difference between falling through the desert sky and falling down next to a skyscraper or something. I could see how fast we are plummeting downward by having something stationary and decent that I could judge our velocity by. So that's basically the premise of this. Just to get it out of the way, please go and see this movie. It is an incredibly great piece of entertainment. I know many people think that the way to get back at Hollywood is to boycott movies. To get Hollywood to change, we're going to boycott movies. They don't expect movies to make money. They expect them occasionally to succeed. Most movies they expect are going to fail. Boycotts don't do anything. But they do see green. And big successes means they make more big successes. So put that aside. You need to go see this movie because of how this movie is going to make you feel. And this is the first question, which I'll address to you, Steve. I came out of that movie. I knew I was feeling much, much better about everything. I was feeling better about my fellow people. I was feeling better about my family, better about my wife, better about myself. I was feeling better about animals. I was just feeling much, much better, period. And I was trying to find the word for what this entertainment was. What was it? Was it ennobling? Was it divine? No, these aren't. It took me a long time because I haven't heard the word in a long time. It's wholesome, Steve. And it's like the difference between waking up to a ice cold Coca-Cola and a Snickers bar versus sitting down to orange juice and bacon and eggs and pancakes. You know, your body knows that there are things that are good for you and things that are bad for you. And this movie made me feel so good that
it's something your
just
soul
astonished me.
knows.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. It just fed something so high and so good that I couldn't even really remember what it was like, except that we don't have much of it anymore.
Yeah, we don't. My generation, I am early Gen X, is really the last to have grown up with really wholesome kids movies. Back when Hollywood actually released a lot of G-rated movies a year, and G meant exactly what you said. PG meant pretty much for grown-ups. Parental guidance. No, pretty much for grown-ups. Let me tell you two things. The first is why I'm dying to see this movie. There are a couple of big reasons that are a little different from yours, and the second is why I'm not going to see it quite yet. Number one, I have two big connections to this movie. The first is I was raised on Winnie the Pooh. From a little guy, I had, I can't remember who made it. It might have been Fisher-Price. It was a Fisher-Price kids record player. They'll look kind of like one of those, you remember the old console TVs that had the stereo in there and you lift the lid and there was a record player next to your TV in the big cabinet? Mm-hmm. It was kind of like that, except, this red plastic thing. And it had a little fake TV screen in front with a little light bulb inside, and every one of these Disney albums came with a little film strip where every time the song played, the film strip changed and you got a picture, just one still picture to go along with the song. And I would wait. I didn't sleep much as a kid. I would wait until my entire family was asleep, and I would put on the Tigger song with the Tigger picture, and I would turn the volume up just loud enough that only I could hear it, and I would bounce up and down on my bed, on my rear end, like I was Tigger bouncing up and down on his tail. This is how I would wear myself out at night to go to sleep when I was 3-4 years old. And this is how deep my connection to Winnie the Pooh goes, okay? I love it in my heart. I always wanted to be Tigger. I knew I was always closer to Eeyore, but I love them all, and I always will. The other, we got to flash forward to about 1997 or 98, when we first found out that George Lucas was going to start making Star Wars prequels. And we didn't know that they were going to suck. Our hopes were really high, or at least mine were. But they cast somebody my age. They cast Ewan McGregor, a guy who was born right around the same time I was, to play one of the most iconic characters from Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And this was a big step for me kind of personally, having also grown up on Star Wars, but also a big step for my generation because somebody my age was taking on the mantle of Obi-Wan. And frankly, that part to me, it still doesn't matter that the prequels sucked. Ewan McGregor was the best part about them, I think, and maybe it's just because of that I think that. But I saw the poster for the movie with Ewan McGregor, now no longer young enough to play a kid Obi-Wan Kenobi, but looking like the sort of dour, almost 50-year-old guy who spent a lot of time of his life working and maybe isn't as happy as he'd like to be. And I knew just from seeing that poster of him in the suit and the overcoat and the hat looking kind of beat down that this movie was going to I'm going to keep this together, would reconnect him to that lost thing.
Yep.
So
you are not going to be disappointed.
I am going to see the movie, but I'm going to wait till it's out on home video because my wife and I agreed that we don't want to blubber in public in the movie theater.
Come on.
The way we're going to blubber on our sofa at home.
Go at night and find a theater without money attendance, and for God's sakes, bring big dark sunglasses.
Yep.
You're going to be crying through the whole movie.
Maybe that's what we'll do.
And you're going to be crying. You're going to be crying through the movie because of the moment that you just experienced, Steve.
Yes.
You're going to be crying about the movie not because of something sad, but because there are some things that are so beautiful. They're so beautiful, spiritually beautiful, that they simply leave you no other choice. And this film has 5 or 6 of those moments where you simply cannot keep it dry. You will not be disappointed.
To reconnect with Winnie the Pooh through Peter Robbins or Christopher Robin, I'm dying for this, Bill. The little kid in me is just dying for that.
It's just a perfectly made movie, and I'm glad you mentioned Ewan McGregor because the whole film orbits around whether or not you can believe that this young idealistic boy becomes this bitter, cynical man, not angry, but just beaten.
Yeah, what happens to every adult to a greater or lesser degree.
Is Ewan McGregor likable enough for you to like this guy when he's not being pleasant? And yes, the answer is yes, but he's also good enough to not be a happy man, and the whole movie turns around him and he's magnificent in it.
I can't wait.
Scotty, you've seen it, and I don't want to make, like I said, it's mostly about the culture, not so much about the movie. But I saw the movie, I loved it so much that the next day I went looking for that Kenny Loggins song. Couldn't remember the name of it. I remember Kenny Loggins had a song about Winnie the Pooh. It's Return to Pooh Corner, right? Is that right, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. So I went looking for that song and found it on YouTube, and I loved listening to it. It meant so much to me. I was like completely taken back by this. But when I was watching on YouTube, Scotty, I saw a video that said the dark truth behind Winnie the Pooh. You know, and there was a picture of the cartoon Winnie the Pooh, and then there's like a growling bear with like teeth and blood dripping from him and stuff. So I decided I was going to watch this. Some 20-year-old woman is narrating this thing and telling me that the real-life Christopher Robin did not live a happy childhood, that he was underneath the shadow of being Christopher Robin for his entire life. He decided he didn't want to take any of the profits from the books, hated the books for a while. And the other reason that this is a dark and gloomy Dickensian story worthy of the gates of hell was because the bear Winnie the Pooh was actually named Edward, I think, the toy. But Winnie, there was a bear named Winnie who was, I believe, orphaned as a cub, taken by, I think it was a Canadian, taken with him to World War I, where it served as the unit mascot and made everybody some sort of happy. And then he was going to keep the bear, but when he went to the London Zoo, he found out they're taking such good care of the animals there, and he decided to leave it there. Winnie the bear stayed at the zoo, lived to be 20 years old, was the only animal that the public was allowed to interact with all day, every day. He's got kids climbing all over him, including Christopher Robin, who went to the zoo that day and got along very well with this bear named Winnie. This is the catastrophe. This is the dark story behind Winnie the Pooh, that the bear's mother was killed by a hunter, and that the bear was sent off to war, not apparently cutting wires with his teeth, mind you, in no man's land, just as a mascot. Then he was imprisoned in a zoo where he lived to be 20 years playing with children. This is the dark underside of the Winnie the Pooh story that needs to be told. So, Scotty, what is it about something beautiful that has to be, what is it that has to be attacked here?
Well, first of all, before I answer that, let me just do an impression here. Good day, Pooh, if it is a good day. which I doubt. That's my impression of Bill Whittle.
Oh, thank you very much. No, ER steals the movie, absolutely.
So, and it's interesting because I just saw Kenny Loggins in concert about a month ago. Came to a casino in Oklahoma, and we went up to see it at one of these native casinos. He tells a story about this Return to Pooh Corner thing where he got a deal to record this record, and he was so excited. He was very, very young. I want to say he was still a teenager at the time. The original, there was two versions of the song, but the original version of the song that he did, and everything was going great until he gets a call one day from his agent that says the deal is shot. And that night he was planning to go out with his girlfriend and they were going to celebrate. He was very excited that he got this deal. And he said to his, what happened to the agent? He said, what happened to the song? And the agent says, well, Disney found out about it and they are going to sue us if we record this song because they own the rights to Winnie the Pooh. And he was just shattered. And his girlfriend comes over and they're going to go out on this date. And she's like, what's the matter? And he said, I can't record the song now. And she said, why not? And he said, well, Disney's not going to let us do it. And his girlfriend says, let me talk to Daddy about that. And apparently Daddy was like the CEO of Disney or something like that at the time.
That's convenient.
Yes. So little did he know. He said, I didn't know. She was just like, a girl I was going out with at the time. And anyway, so that apparently she was able to talk to Daddy and everything came out okay. Bill, I think what your whole point, I think, is beautiful because it is beautiful things like this movie, Christopher Robin, that make us realize what the rest is. That make us realize the darkness. I used to tell people when I worked for a cable TV company and they said, oh, it must be great because you get free cable TV. And I said, actually, I've got my cable box almost completely locked down. Like nothing gets through it. And they said, really? What are you, crazy? And I said, no, I just don't think that it's worthwhile opening a sewer pipe into my living room in the hopes that a diamond ring will come out every once in a while.
Well played.
And that's the way Hollywood's gotten for a lot of people. Now, thankfully, there are still a lot of outlets for decent movies, but you may not find them at the mainstream or at the theater. I will highlight one that I just saw the other day. My daughter recommended it. It's called The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Another one of those kind of movies that is just wholesome and touching and powerful and makes you want to be a better person. Movie. So I guess I want to second Bill's motion that what we do with Hollywood is not, wag our fingers and lift our noses and tisk them when they do a bad job, but to reward them when they do a good job. To watch those movies that are excellent, to go see movies like we saw earlier this year, The Greatest Showman, to go see Christopher Robin. You will thoroughly enjoy it. And, break your habit and go to see it a couple of times because that's what they need to see that because they make more movies that make money. That's how the whole system works.
But let me just redirect you to the original question, which is why does something, that's quite all right. It's quite all right. Why does something as beautiful as this story, not just the movie, but the whole Winnie the Pooh thing is because this bear is very simple but very wise, and it's just elevating. Why is it that immediately you have to see the dark, untold story of Winnie the Pooh? What is it about something wholesome that has to be destroyed?
Because it shows that there is objective good. There is actual good in the world, and therefore there is actual evil in the world. And it puts the lie to this whole notion that things are just what we say they are. And this is why they're attempting to destroy it and why they have to discredit it is they've got to find the dark side of everything. I think part of it, frankly, is psychological. I think a lot of these people who are branded as ideological leftists, for example, are psychologically troubled people. I don't mean everybody. I'm not saying every leftist is psychologically troubled, but I think they're working out their private angst in the public square so that all of their civil discourse becomes an uncivil branding of other people's beauty and harmony and the things that should be ennobling and wholesome.
Well, here's the societal analysis, folks, and it was just inspired by this movie. It's not so much about the movie. First of all, I've gotten to be pretty good friends with Evan Sayed, a conservative stand-up comic, probably the only one in the world, or maybe there's another. He used to write for David Letterman, and he was actually fairly close friends with David Letterman. And when he was trying to write jokes for Letterman, they didn't want jokes. They did a segment on plankton, and Evan said, but that's not funny. He goes, that's the point. That's why we want it.
That's right.
You see, we're past humor now. We're past it. In order to be cool, we can't possibly be funny because that's kind of square and old-fashioned. So our new humor will be to essentially bring snark to the front, right? It's not something clever, original, witty. It's simply denigrating everything else so that you can feel better and the rest of the world goes down. This movie had such a powerful effect on me because of the end result of all of this. Our friend Andrew Breitbart was 100% right when he said that politics is downstream of culture, and here's what he means by that. The future that we get is the future that we think we're going to get. And I don't mean that in any kind of a hippy-dippy kind of way. It's really pretty straightforward, brass tacks logic. Your thoughts determine your attitudes. Your attitudes determine your actions. Your actions determine the future. And it's really very simple. So whatever those thoughts are, whatever your feelings are, it's what's going to manifest itself across 300 million people in this country. Hollywood and America were beloved around the world because Hollywood used to make movies that made people come out of the theater feeling better than they did before they went in. But for the last 40 years or so, the entire purpose of the movies has been to kick you in the teeth. And I spent this movie, I some level knew it wasn't going to happen, but I kept on the edge of my seat the whole movie because they're going to either Pooh's going to explode or something horrible is going to happen, and we're going to get our lesson on how nothing means anything and there is no right and there is no justice or friendship or truth or love or anything. Didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I was quite pleasantly surprised to find out that even though the villain in this movie is a rapacious, nasty, mean-spirited capitalist who runs something of a slave labor camp, turns out that the solution at the end of this movie is not the socialist revolution and benefits for and workers trashing the place. That turns out the solution is more capitalism is what's going to make everybody happy. That was just a bonus. Folks, you really need to see this movie, and I'm not saying go see it as a social experiment, but you will come out with a very clear sense that something that used to be everywhere in this culture is now so rare that it warrants a segment of political commentary. And it is what they say about computer science, garbage in, garbage out, society the exact same way. We've been stuffing a lot of garbage into our heads for a long time now, and speaking for myself, I didn't have anything to measure the sewage flow that Scott was talking about until I saw an actual diamond come out of it. And then I began to realize, my God, we have fallen a long way. And it's not impossible to go back. That's the main story about Christopher Robin, is you can go back again. And that's a story that I think should resonate with every American and every person of goodwill. That'll do it for this episode of Right Angle, brought to you by a small number of very fine people named members at BillWhittle.com who've been patrons and friends of ours for quite a long time now, and our gratitude to them is never ending. If you'd like to be part of it, you can head over to BillWhittle.com and click on Become a Member. We'll see you next week right here on Right Angle.